Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to my podcast, We Share, We Grow. I'm your host and holistic coach, Aoife Rafter. If you want to be empowered to take action in your self-development journey, then you are in the right place. We Share, We Grow will bring you closer to reaching your full potential through sharing and growing from the life-changing advice of my favourite health and wellness experts. I believe that we grow through what we go through, and together we can become abundant in all aspects of health and wellness despite our health challenges. I'm so excited to be part of your self-development journey, just as so many of you have been part of mine. So let's do this. Let's share and grow together. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to the final episode of my first season of this podcast, We Share, We Grow. I am very excited to introduce my next guest, a truly inspiring woman. She is a Neuro Linguistic programming mind coach, as well as a domestic violence awareness trainer and speaker. She founded Glow Coaching in 2016 because she wanted to help more people move forward in their lives when it comes to gaining confidence and direction and breaking free from limiting beliefs and emotional triggers. Please welcome to the podcast this lovely Glow coach, Suzanne Doyle. Welcome.
Hey, Aoife, thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome, and I'm delighted that we are having this conversation. It's a little bit different, I suppose, to anyone's average wellness in quotations conversation. Before I got into this whole wellness area, I advocated a lot for patients' kind of rights and patients' needs. So I understand the role of advocating really well, and I do take it seriously. I think this is a conversation that needs to happen on many more podcasts. So I'm just honored to have you here today to take part in that. My podcast is called We Share, We Grow. So I think a lot of us need to be sharing this information and really growing and helping each other through it. So yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Suzanne, you are helping people like from a really traumatic, I suppose, point in their lives. Domestic violence, I mean, that's as traumatic as it can really get for a lot of women. I know myself to come to this point where I'm helping people in trauma. I've obviously endured a lot of it too. And I was wondering, has that similar for you? Why did you decide to get onto this, I suppose, path in your career?
Yeah, it's not your usual, when I grow up, I want to be, but so I actually qualified and trained as a tennis coach in my early 20s. So it was in 2005 that I got involved as a volunteer with a local domestic violence service. And I, it did stem from backgrounds, stuff I've experienced myself, but when I was 17, I was in a horrible relationship for 5 years, and domestic violence, I didn't even know what that was. It wasn't a phrase or a term that I'd heard. We didn't have, this is back in the late 90s, we didn't have social media. We didn't have all the, Google, that we could look up these certain things. So what I found was that I didn't, at the time when I was going through it or coming out of it, there wasn't much help for me to be able to access. Even though later on I found that there was supports there, I wasn't able to access them. I didn't know anything about them. So I just wanted to be able to help people that were in that situation. I wanted to be able to just make it easier for them. And then that's why I started rolling out training on preventing it, the warning signs, everything like that, because I was thinking if we can get this training out while people are young, it might actually prevent them from being in a domestic violence situation or an intimate violence situation. So that for me obviously came from the experience that I had, and I don't want anyone to experience that. I would love to see the numbers coming down.
Yeah.
I would love to see that in my lifetime, where there's a significant drop. At the moment, they're just constantly increasing. At the moment, it's 1 in 3 globally of women that will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime.
That's
And
huge.
it is. And globally, just last year, 45,000 women and girls were killed by the majority, over 50% of people that they knew. So the statistics are stark, but, and I'm saying they are stark, but there are ways to help. There are ways to get those numbers down. And I think the more people understand and listen to the likes of the podcasts that you're doing, and and know that there's hope. There is hope, and there is hope of recovering from abusive experiences, from traumatic experiences. It's, it's the how. How do we do it?
And do you know, like, from the patterns, like, it's the 2nd of December, is this time of year like notoriously worse? I would just imagine, like, there's so many more financial pressures this feckin' year now in general, but like at Christmas time and other stressors, like, does that make stats a little bit more intense?
Christmas is always going to be a tough time for so many people. Um, there's a few reasons for that, but what we always found when I was working in the helplines, and what we always found previously was, coming up to Christmas, it actually got quieter.
Really?
The helplines got quieter, and it was because a lot of the women were trying to keep things really, really peaceful, and appease, placate, just to try and manage things so that it could be a nice time for the kids to get that excitement going. So they would put their own stuff to the side and make it about their kids. And then what we found then was, we always knew that when on Christmas Day, Stephen's Day, when there wasn't anything else open, so it was like a 24/7 when the abuser is there in the home. And if there's, I mean, alcohol and addiction doesn't create an abuser, it doesn't make an abusive relationship, but what it can escalate the violence, it can escalate the whole threats and intimidation around it. So, and then you'd also get people that were coming to the end of the year and saying, I'm not doing another year of this. I'm not living like this for another year. How can I get out of it? So they're reaching out for that support as well. But we did
Okay.
find, and you can actually see the way, with COVID, the numbers rose. The numbers across to Garda stations, to helplines, rose dramatically, because they were locked and trapped in their home with their abusers. So they weren't even getting the 8 hours away from when they were in work or sports or whatever it was. They were trapped. It was 24/7. So the intensity of that is just, you can imagine, is
Like a boiling pot, like just increasing and increasing. You're like, I mean, it was feckin' intense being with people anyway, but if there's a level of abuse, I can't imagine.
Mm. And what we also found was, because people weren't seeing it, it was easier to hide the abuse that was going on. So the violence could intensify and escalate, and no one could see the physical sides. No one could see that. No one was meeting each other. So it was a lot easier to hide all of that was going on.
Wow, that's absolutely, like, it's so stark. And I think the pandemic itself has really made me like reflect and think on, God, imagine if, you were going through a situation of IVF or surrogacy or cancer treatment, because that's what I can relate to. But like, I never really thought about the women that were being abused in a domestic violence situation. And that is a whole nother level of, like, people have survived a lot of trauma in the last few years. And I think that's why these conversations need to keep happening, because we all know, like, we try to shake off a thing and hope for the best and we think we're fine, but then it will creep up a few years later when we don't do that sort of work on ourselves. Is that kind of what the NLP that you're trained in helps with? I've actually never come across the term before until I came across you.
Okay. Yeah, NLP. So it's neuro linguistic programming. So basically, it's the study of how we think, how we communicate, and how we behave. And what I love about NLP is you can work with someone and you access the subconscious and the conscious. So you'd use a lot of help inside the limiting beliefs that are causing people to, to feel how they're feeling, to think how they're thinking, and to communicate in certain ways that they have built up throughout their lifetime. So when you're working with NLP, when I'm working with someone, I'd they can give me a broad description of what's going on for them without having to go into the details. I don't, so they're not feeling like they're exposing all of those hurts, those pains, and those traumas. Because once you can access the subconscious, they're doing the work. Their subconscious is doing all of that work without me needing to hear. Now they can talk about it, but it's what I love about it is that you don't have to. You don't have to go through a traumatic event in order to be able to work on it, because you can just do it inside your mind, and you're just guided through then by an NLP coach, which is it's a safe way to do it.
It actually sounds really similar to the breath work. Like I'm coaching them through the subconscious work. It's I suppose subconscious work is quite similar. There's just so many like different ways of accessing it. And I think that's so helpful because so many people, you know, they get so far with talk therapy and they want to go deeper with the subconscious, you know, tools. So it's really great that NLP is another one that you have. And limiting beliefs is a huge part. I've only kind of been doing a bit of work on them myself in the last while. But yeah, like if you wanted to explain, like in your experience with clients and stuff, like what it is they limiting beliefs can get in the way of and how they affect our lives and mindsets.
And like our brain forms patterns very quickly and it makes things automatic very quickly. So if we're operating in a certain way, that can become our normal response very quickly. And we don't see how we're limiting ourselves. It can also stem from a very young age. You know, if we're being criticized by a teacher, by a parent, or being compared to, all of our lives. Oh, your sister is better, or sister, and it's not done in an intentional way. It's not
Mm.
often, it's not done to hurt you. It's just maybe done in their way of this will encourage them to be better. But
Bit of
that
tough
can all get in
love.
on you. Yeah, and that's the way they have operated,
I
so
know.
that's what they think is best, and that's their normal response. So it's not about blaming people for what they did to us when we were a child. It could be that was how they knew how to do it. That was their only way. And that's why I always combine the satire model of coaching with it, because it's such it's filled with empathy and compassion. So for both yourselves and understanding where someone might have come from in their best way. But if you're growing up in a way that you're feeling inadequate or that you're feeling not good enough and you believe that I'll never be good enough, I'll never, that can then, as we get older, we have defenses, then we build up protections, we build up defenses, and we may mimic how our parents deal with uncomfortable situations. So, we might become a placater or we might become a blamer. So they're defenses and protections that we build up, and they might work for us for a while
Mm.
through certain things or at a certain age, but then it gets to a point where it's so ingrained in us that we feel I'll never be good enough, or there's always, I'm inadequate, or and that can leave us in a vulnerable situation. So when there's people then that are out there that want to feel better about themselves by putting other people down and controlling them, then they might then target your vulnerabilities and be able to hone in on that. And then you find yourself in a situation or a relationship that's toxic, that's
Mhm.
abusive, and you feel that it's your fault. You're blaming yourself for everything. And it's an abuser, a skilled abuser, is very good at making you blame yourself for everything, for their behavior, for their reactions, for their moods. And it's all your responsibility. And it's not. We know that, coming from a rational place, or a, a place where, you're at a leveler kind of thing, you can see that everyone is responsible for their own behavior. I can't be responsible for your reactions. I can't be responsible for your aggression or your moods, because only you can be responsible for that. But in an abusive relationship, the person that's been abused is made responsible for all of that. And they will believe that. Oh, if only I could do this better, well, then they will be happy. If only I could be a better partner, then everything will be okay.
Mm.
If I didn't say that, if I didn't cry, if I didn't say something, well, then I wouldn't have been assaulted,
Yes.
and so that's why certain things that certain beliefs that we have grown up with about ourselves can really limit us in those situations, because we will take all the blame.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's
But
why
there are
sorry, I just was going to say I think that's why the subconscious work is like so good because sometimes we're really blind to our limiting beliefs and it just becomes a blind spot because it's so normalized. That's how we're used to functioning. Until we realize, oh shit, like there's something like askew here. I could do it working out myself for myself. And like with the subconscious work, do you find do you do a bit of talk therapy also? Because I was just going to say, I feel like the subconscious work can get to the root a lot faster sometimes for certain people than the talk therapy. Now, I'm not dissing talk therapy because I've did it for years, but the subconscious work really sped things up for me.
Yeah, and that's I do find the NLP is it gets results quicker, but I also think there is a huge place for talk therapy as well. So what sometimes, well, a lot of the time, people will go through talk therapy and work through, stuff at a pace that they need to do it.
Yeah,
It's not about coming in with this bulldozer and fixing everything. So it's talk therapy. I think it's about combining a
I
lot of
do too.
different therapies and
I do
finding what
too.
works for different things.
Yeah, I love when my clients are already going to like a therapist and then they're doing the subconscious work. I'm like, this is perfect because this is what holistic therapies is all about. It's encompassing every kind of angle that you can sustainably do so. So I think that's a really good point. But we definitely should go back to the domestic violence piece. We heard the term red flags, gaslighting, love bombing. They're all kind of hot terms, I guess, right now. But what do they mean? Like, what are we talking about when we say those things and those kind of catchphrases?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful about how these terms and catchphrases, as you just said, are used, because they're becoming trend words, but
Mm,
people are missing the the insidiousness that actually is underneath all of that. So when we say red flags, I'm hearing, especially in the last year or two, people are throwing, that term all over the place, and
yeah.
gaslighting. And
And also like monetizing from it. I'm like, can we just actually talk about what the hell a red flag is instead of just posting it and, selling a course? Like, what is it? Let's like share and talk about it. So, yeah, sorry, over
yeah.
to you.
Yeah, no, with red flags, there are red flags in every abusive relationship, and they start the grooming. We say the term grooming, because an abuser will groom their partner into accepting all of what we mentioned, the blame, the responsibility. So there's red flags from the very early stage. So if you go on your first date, they're not going to just physically hit you or attack you on the first date. They might present themselves as this irresistible, charming person, caring. And I want you to imagine, have you ever seen the movie Frozen, the children's movie
Yeah,
Frozen?
yeah, unfortunately.
So if you think of Prince Hans,
Mm,
the wonderful, charming, irresistible Prince Hans, and
yeah.
I felt head over heels straight away. And look at from the very beginning, that first song that they had together was, the commitment. Oh, we're so alike, where, we have this deep connection. And can I move, I'll move in with you. So
Mm,
things like that can be red flags. It's the early commitment, the wanting to be with you
yeah.
24/7, in your head. And with the phones now, it's the constant texting, the ringing, wanting to be a part of your life every minute of every day. That can be suffocating. But at the beginning of a relationship, it could be, oh, he really wants to be with me. Isn't that so lovely?
Yeah, so true.
But, underneath, and then it's, how do they behave with you when you're just the two of you? How do they behave when their friends are around? How do they behave in other groups? And, so it's, are their behavior changing, matching the people that they're around, depending on the people that they're around. And also the wanting to know
Mm,
your past relationships, and wanting to know, how did that fail, and wanting to really know a lot of, kind of, they might be brilliant listeners, but they're listening for vulnerabilities. And that's not to say that everyone who listens is going to want to hurt you or control you,
of
but it's
course.
something to look out for. Why are they questioning my past relationships? They might say, oh, how are you still single, and da da da, but they're wanting to know then, well, why did you break up with them? And then if you've been in a bad relationship and you're talking about, oh yeah, no, they did this and they did that, and that was really hurt, that really hurt and everything, but that person will then present themselves as the opposite of that, because they'll know that you have a reference now. And if they
Mm,
do that, you're going to say, no, 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 you're just like my ex. No. So they might present themselves in a different way. So if you say, oh, they were constantly, you know they an example, like they were threatening me, or they did, whatever it was, that they won't use that, or they were slagging me about how my looks or appearances or whatever. They won't do that. not for a while anyway. They won't do it in those grooming stages. They'll present
Okay.
themselves as, oh no, you're beautiful, you're perfect. And there's the other red flags is, then are you comfortable around them? Is there any sort of fear? Is there any instincts there that's been kicking off? And then we also have the sorry, there's so many red flags, but it's how do you feel after you've spoken on the phone to them? Is there an anxiety there, or before you're about to see them or speak to them? Is there an anxiety that you have to maybe think, oh, who was I speaking to today, or that they might ask me about or accuse me about anything? And then there's the constant texts
Yeah.
or calls, and then why didn't you answer your phone straight away? What were you doing?
Mm.
I was in the bathroom, and it's not giving you any space. But it's also if you have certain boundaries, and if they then try to shift those boundaries, or if you say, no, I'm not comfortable with that, I don't want to do that. And then it might be, oh, okay. But then a few days later, it could be try it again and try it again. So they kind of start to shift boundaries.
Mm.
And it's happened so subtly. It's so subtly. And then with the gaslighting, they're then trying to change your reality. So if you say, oh no, this is how it happened, this is what I said, that is not what you said. I remember what you said, it was this. So they're changing what you remember, they're changing how you remembered it. And then you get to question, well, maybe I am wrong. But deep down, that is how it happens. So,
Okay.
and then there's, again, it's a very subtle process. And when things happen so subtly, it's hard to spot it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a change blindness. It's a gradual thing. So it's very hard to actually spot it until you're deep in it and trying to get out of it. And it's like, how did I get here?
I can only imagine. Yeah, the overwhelm then from that point to try and get the hell out. And I'd say then there's a lot of shame as well, like when you realize at that point that you need some support to get out of the situation, but like I can imagine like you'd feel ashamed that it got that bad and blame yourself. Is that common too?
Well, the first thing that happens in an abusive, one of the first things that happens is you will be isolated from your friends and family.
Oh, of
And
course.
again, that's done subtly. So they will, and it could be that, you're inviting your friends over and he's there and he makes it so uncomfortable. Or he might sit there with a sulk on his face and not engage, or he might actually be over engaging and come on to your friends. So it's like, oh, well, I don't want to have them around. Or if you're going out to them, then he might kick off some huge argument to make it so difficult and so hard. So then when you do go out with your friends, he's in your head. You're not there having fun. He's in your head. And there's always a punishment then afterwards, whether it's with silent treatment, whether it's, with an assault, but it will be your fault because you're the one who made the decision to go out with your friends. It can make it so difficult for you to do it. So you just don't, because you're so exhausted, you're so drained. It's like, it's just easier if I don't. And then
Yeah.
if your friends don't want to be around you because he might turn up, you're on a girls' night out, and next of all, there he is. Oh, I didn't realize you were here. And then you might find later, yeah, he's been tracking your phone. He has the iPhone tracker or whatever, so he
Yeah.
knows exactly where you're going, who you. And then there's another thing, and I just say it to the young girls when I'm doing it in schools and stuff, that they want, if you're out with your friends, they're ringing all the time, but they want a video call. Just let me say hello to your friends so they can see exactly who you're with, who's around you, and know exactly where you are. And then if you're, why have you got your locations turned off? Are you trying to hide something? When it comes to Snapchat or whatever it is, because they want to be able to see exactly where you are. So, and it's so easy to put trackers now on people, especially with the mobile phones.
Yeah.
So if you're isolated from your friends and your family, who do you go to? Who do you speak to? Who can you trust? And then another thing, and I know, see, I told you, I go, oh,
No, I need you to because there's so much information that I'm learning. Oh, I don't know any of this, so please continue.
but there's the other thing then is they become your friends and family's best friend. And so if you go and say to them, oh no, he's being really cruel. Oh, would you stop? Now that's you overreacting. Now he's lovely. Didn't he do this for me? And didn't he do that? And he's so generous. So he can actually get your friends and family on side, and then he might be able to say to them that, oh, look, she's going through a bad time. Maybe give her, she's a bit depressed, or she's going through mental health stuff. And, so maybe give her space and stuff. So I'm here I'm doing everything. I'm doing all I can to help her. But, so he's coming across as this amazing person
Yeah.
but you're basically locked away. And if you have children, he's there, he might bring the kids to school, and, so you don't even have that outlet. And then
Okay.
you don't know what he's actually saying about you. Or then the other thing is that you were responsible for everything, the work, the finances, the home, the children, and they're doing nothing, and they're taken from you as well. It's like, well, no, they're taking your money, or they want in a joint account, and they're not putting anything in, but they're taking everything from it, or
Mm.
they're running up bills or debts, or not paying mortgages or whatever. So all the finance, so basically you're on a roller coaster. So if you have financial issues going on, if you have children needing this, and if you have children with extra needs, or every child needs attention and needs that, and then you're trying to hold down a job, possibly two jobs, keep a roof over your head, pay everything, you have more bills coming in, you have children that need, coming up to Christmas, oh, my friend is getting this, I want to get this, and da, da, da. It's like you don't see what's going on because you're too caught up in everything.
Yeah.
So you're just, and then who do you go to if you're disconnected from friends, from family, from supports? Or they might actually make you lose your job by ringing up, accusing you of being with a colleague, accusing you of being with a boss, and then you have to leave your job.
Wow.
There's so many dynamics that go on
I was
in
just gonna
an abusive
say,
relationship.
like, it's dynamic and complex. You probably like you wouldn't know. Like it's probably so hard to even gauge, like, is this what I'm going through? But I suppose that bottom line is that gut instinct. Like, why do you have to ask? Why do you have to think
Yeah.
twice?
We had a lot of people that, when I was working on the helplines, we had a lot of people that would ring and say, I don't know if what I'm going through is domestic abuse. He hasn't hit me. So, we just say, look, you tell us where you are at now. Tell us how you're doing now. And then when they actually get into it, the psychological, the financial, sexual abuse that could be going on is, oh, it's tremendous. And then they're saying, oh, no, look, you've other people that will need your time more
Mm.
than I do. So, I don't want to keep you. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is your space. And that's what all of the helplines across Ireland, that's what they're there for. So reach out to them. And if you don't know if you know that there's something not right, or you're not feeling that you're in a healthy relationship, ring and ask. Talk to someone. They're all really trained. They're not there to judge you. You can
Mhm.
tell as little or as much as you want. You don't even have to tell them your name or your location unless you actually need a refuge, or you need certain supports that they need to know your location for, like courts and stuff like that. But you can just ring up and say, I'm Mary, I'm Betty, whatever it is. You don't even have to say, you don't even have to make up a name. You can just talk about what's going on for you at that moment and get the support, because
And
that's what they're there for.
what are those supports in case anyone needs to know, like right now? Like, what are those helplines?
So if you go on to safeireland.ie, it will give you all of the support services around Ireland. It
Brilliant.
will also give you, and they have a quick click out as well of that website. They will also give you the services that each support service has. So whether it's a refuge, whether it's court accompaniments, whether it's outreach, or whether it's helpline. Um, and also the helpline, the refuges are also 24-hour helplines as well. So and it's not about just, oh, I'd only ring them if I need to go in. No, no, no. You can ring them just to talk to them as well. And it's just to have the safe space that you can talk about what's going on for you without judgment, without someone telling you what you have to do, because they won't tell you what you have to do. They
Mm.
won't tell you what you need to do or what you should do. They will ask you, how can we help you? What would you like to do next? So they're just walking beside you. They're not going to pull or push you. They're not going to tell you, no, you have to leave. They will just say, what support do you need from us? And we'll walk beside you. And that's what that's what the support services are there for.
Amazing. That's brilliant. That's really, really good. Hey guys, did you know that my breathwork coaching services are officially live for you to book into? Why not expand your inner growth journey even further with me and book into my weekly workshops held every Wednesday evening, or one of my Feel It Out drop-in sessions held every Tuesday and Thursday evenings? If you are particularly struggling with something such as grief, overwhelm, self-confidence issues, motivation, chronic fatigue, or pain, book in for a free consultation before attending some of my one-to-one breathwork coaching with me. You can find out more at breathewithaoife.com. The kind of curious psychological toxically nearly empathetic. I'm so empathetic. I love even watching documentaries on why people become murderers, or why people end up being pedophiles, and the darkest shit. I'd want to understand how does that happen. Same when it comes to domestic violence and the roles are reversed. How does somebody kind of catch themselves becoming that toxic, dangerous person to other people?
Yeah, there's a couple of different types that you're going to get, but the fact of the matter is that all the tactics are the same. And I've worked with people from around the world, and when they're describing what has been happening, it's the same tactics that are used. It's the same pattern that's used. It's like they've all come out of the same college. But if you find, and that's why I put up some things on my Instagram, have you ever done this? Because some people, it's such a normal behavior for them. They don't realize that what they're doing is hurting someone and intentionally hurting them. They don't realize that they are being controlling. Some do. Some know exactly what they're doing, and it can be very, very calculated. Some people, and it's not to say how you're brought up, because let's say two brothers could grow up in the same household at the same time, with the same parents, the same environment. If there's abuse, or that's going on in that home, or control, or aggression, anything like that, one can choose to become like the abuser. One could choose to become like a protector, saying,
Yeah.
if they see their mother being, hurt and crying, and might become this protector, and that can be dangerous for them in a situation if they're still living at home, especially if they're, a teenage boy or whatever, and they take on the father, but they will kind of, when they go on into adult relationships, they will be protective, they will be nurturing, they will be caring, but the other brother might choose, no, actually, I'm going to become, even though they knew that what their father was doing to their mother was wrong, they have learned those patterns. It's learned behavior. But when something is learned, it can be unlearned. So there is always hope for people to change if they want to. If someone's needs are being met in how they're acting, they might say, why would I bother changing? Instead of looking at, what could I have, if I behaved a different way, maybe we could both be in a really fulfilling relationship, them and their partner, rather than, rather than me just having my needs met. What if I changed my behavior so that my partner is also having their needs met? So, so then it's like, so if you recognize that what you're doing is hurting someone else, then it becomes your responsibility to change it. So you can then choose, either change my behavior or keep going the way I'm going, knowing that I'm hurting someone else. So, so there are ways then of looking at, so when you do that, and I've had calls from men saying, look, I've just, realized, because I know I did an interview on one of the things, and I was just talking about the behaviors, the abusive behaviors. And I had a few calls then saying, actually, I do that.
Wow.
So, and they wanted to change. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want my children to see that. I don't want my children growing up and being in a relationship where they're being abused and controlled. So how do I change it? So when the want is there for them to change it, it becomes a choice, and but they have to consciously then change their patterns and recognize when they're going into their old patterns. So it's about learning new skills. How can I respond to this situation in a more adult, responsible way?
That's so huge. And it's also part of the why I asked the question. Because I, like myself, was in a relationship for a few years and I didn't like the person I was becoming, and it was a toxic relationship and neither of us were behaving in a healthy way. And it just made me feel like burned out, impatient, always in bad form. It was always his fault that I was in bad form. And I would just say awful things. And I feel like that person is so different to who I am today. But I, like, when I reflect on it, like now, knowing all I know and all I've gone through, like, it scares the shit out of me. I was like, that really easily just happened over a short space of time, like a year or two. I was becoming this awful girlfriend, just not nice girlfriend. And it really slipped in without me paying attention and like kind of reflecting on what was going on. I wasn't as intuitive as I am now. And that is part of why I'm asking that question, because like I do want to share that with my listeners. Like, it can happen to any of us if we're not paying attention and if we don't know what's healthy and what's not.
Yeah, and if, and it is looking at what is a healthy relationship, and it's having those reference points. If I'm accusing someone, if I'm not allowing someone to go and have private space, why is that?
Mm.
Why am I doing that? Why do I need to control everything that they do or say or think or believe? So what needs am I trying to meet in myself by doing that? So and it is about reflection, like you said. It's about reflecting on our behavior. So if you have a big bust up or a big, fight or whatever, it is important to take time out and reflect what actually happened there. Not what
Mm.
I believed at the time, but what actually happened there.
Yeah,
What did, and it's looking at your own reactions. Why did I react that way? Why did I say that? So it might mean that you need to take time out to heal, to look at what's triggering you. What are those needs that, or what is that feeling? As often it can be like an insecurity in us that we're trying to mask or hide so that we don't want the world to see. So we come at it with it, whether it's with toxic behavior. So it's like, what is that? So it can be deep work and it can be hard work,
yeah,
but it can also be hugely rewarding. I mean, imagine that you have this, you're carrying this, whatever it is, anger, hurt, pain in you for so long, and then you actually take time out to go inside, listen, hear what it is you need, and go and get that help. Go and whether it's talk therapy, whether it's CBT, whether it's hypnosis, whatever it is, it's worth investing that time, that energy, that the cost obviously is going to cost, but it's nothing on what you're doing to someone else. So it's take that time out and heal.
definitely.
And then yes, you might slip up, you might make it, but then if you recognize, oh, that's an old pattern, that's not a useful pattern, and then say, okay, how can I do better?
I know it
Does
sounds
that answer your
simple.
question? Or
Yeah, no, it does. It all sounds like really obvious, I suppose. Simple is the wrong word because it's not simple. It's actually like quite hard to get to that point and to do the work. It's quite hard, but it's all about like really slowing down, taking ourselves out of our, I suppose, daily norm of things and just trying to gain a newer perspective on what's going on to slow down, stop and reflect. And I think that's where like so many realizations can happen. I also heard you speak about breathing exercises on a different podcast. And you were like speaking about how you've used them with clients. Could you maybe share some of that with us?
yeah, I mean, how important breathing is, and the right type of breathing. I mean, that's what you, that's what you're all about. And if our breathing is the first indicator to our brain to tell us whether we're in danger, whether we're, in fear, or, so if we're breathing properly, we can take our minds into a more rational place, because once our breathing changes and indicates that we have some sort of fear, we go into primitive brain.
Mm.
So it's that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And you can't make rational decisions from the primitive brain because it's instinctive. So, and if that fear is not like a bear chasing you, the brain will then show up all of these what if, these mad scenarios that, and can lead you into the panic attacks, a huge anxiety. So if you can breathe. So the one thing, and I do it with children, teenagers, adults, a very simple thing, because if they first thing to do is recognize your breath. how do you breathe normally, and really get in tune with your breathing. And if you know that there's a change, then it's going to set off other triggers. It could be your stomach, your head, your neck. Everyone gets it in a different place. So if the earlier you can discover when something has been triggered, the earlier you can then prevent it from going into full flow of panic attack. So it's just a very simple one to remember. Is just the box breathing. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and pause for 4. And it's one that you can actually remember. So you just think, when I'm doing it with children, I just think of a box and follow that box. Breathing in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and pause for 4. And then when you can get your breath, when you do that for a minute or so, and you can do it anywhere, you could be on a bus, you could be walking, you don't have to go into this, the bean bags and the meditation, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And because it's not a complex thing that you have to think about, you can still think of it in your primitive brain. The more you practice it, the easier it will happen, the more automatic it will happen. And then, so when you do that, it then brings you into a place where the brain is like, oh, we're breathing here, steady, slow. Maybe there's nothing coming to attack us. Then you can go into, now what do I need to do now? What
That's
do I
so
need to do
powerful,
next?
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it
huge.
is. And what I've also, when I was working with women that might have had to go into the courts to face a judge, face their abuser, and you can see their shoulders are in, they're forward, they're tight, their anxiety is just, everything is being triggered. And of course it is. It's hugely intimidating experience. But if you can just bring your shoulders back, that straight away allows the breath to move easier. So if you can bring your shoulders back and then just do breathing in for 4 and breathe out for 7. And again, it's sending a trigger. So when it's sending a signal to your brain that that's okay, we've got this.
Yeah.
Everything must be okay. But when the shoulders are back, and you just do it there, if you put your shoulders back, automatically your head lifts and you have this more feeling of confidence.
Yeah, I was just going to say that posture and confidence, like there's so much posture work for for speakers and CEOs, like all of those people do those work because every single one of us needs a bit of a confidence boost and a bit of a, into the parasympathetic nervous system. Let's slow it all down. Let's slow the crap down because everyone gets affected by their nervous system and gets anxiety in different ways at different times. And I think that's why this work is just so accessible and needed for everybody. And as I say, especially after the trauma, different types of trauma from the pandemic. So just for people to connect with you and avail of your services, do you want to talk about that for a sec so that everyone knows where to reach you?
So my Instagram is glow.coach. And my website is www.glowmindcoach.ie. And I actually have some of the trainings that I do in groups and stuff like that. So you can get a list of stuff there. And I do have Facebook Glow Coaching. I don't use it as often as I use the Instagram. And then LinkedIn will be Suzanne Doyle on the LinkedIn.
And what are the other types of courses and stuff that you can do with people, and what do you work, I suppose, predominantly on? Is it just domestic abuse, or what can you help people with?
No, I've had people come to me that are they have reached burnout in work. They could be at a pretty high level in work and they're just burnt out. So I can do a lot of work with them. I've worked with people with anxiety. I've worked with teenagers that have gone through traumatic events or that are just not coping with school life, or and how to get back into school and how to feel more confident in themselves. The training that I do training, and it could be around for the warning signs, the grooming signs, the how to respond to domestic abuse as well. So it could be someone that knows someone, or people that have been brought into companies so that they can have a better understanding of how do we respond to our staff that might be experiencing domestic abuse, or how can we support them best as a company. And then the new training is obviously the ones about how do I address my own controlling patterns. So it's looking at people that want to actually improve their lives, their behaviors, and their relationships for themselves, for their partner, for their children, whatever it might be. They just want to be better. Um, so I do a lot of stuff. It's more the training. I can do it online, or we can do it in. I do prefer the training that I do with groups that want to change how they're doing, change what they're doing. I much prefer to do that in person, because then they can see that this is not about judging them. This is not about blaming them. This is coming from a very compassionate place for them to learn how to be compassionate to themselves, to have empathy for themselves, and to be able to forgive themselves by changing as well. So it comes at it from a very interactive way. It's not me standing there just preaching at them. It's interactive. It's self-discovery. It's how can we, and it's lovely to see, because you see people and they're like, oh, I didn't actually I do that, and and it's that self-reflection then. But it's done in a safe place, and it's done in a way that they can grow from it. So as you're saying, we share, we grow, and this is about growth. It's about
Yeah,
growth mindset. It's about growing in every possible way, and everyone can do it. It's
that's
making
it.
that hard choice and putting in that effort.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant, brilliant one, because you're also like, again, you're getting to the root cause there. You're getting to, the people that could possibly be inflicting the abuse and the pain in the future, and passing that down again onto their children. So I think like that is that's powerful work that you're doing. So congratulations. I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Do you know what, Aoife, I'm determined to see a reduction in these numbers. So I think if we can get to the source of it,
Yeah,
then we can see
absolutely.
some
You
really
can
good
tell. You
changes.
can tell your passion, like that you're doing the right kind of, you're on the right path for sure.
Thank
Um,
you.
we'll just go to the little rapid fire round. Okay, so the first question is the best advice you've ever received.
Don't think, just do.
Oh, that's good.
And that comes from it comes from my mentor, actually, my NLP mentor, and we can all do it.
Hmm.
We get so caught up in the head space and the thoughts of what how to, and it gets overwhelming, it gets huge. And he just kind of narrowed it down, said, stop thinking, just do, take action. What do you need to do now? So it's not about looking into, oh yeah, but if I do this and I do this, it's what can you do now? Shut off the brain,
Yeah.
just take a next step.
Amazing. So, so good. Have you struggled with this one? I don't know how, because I have about an hour's worth, but have you come up with any worst advice you've received, or are we just skipping straight past it?
Well, no, there has been some really bad advice, but I think, and this is a personal one, I think, for me, because of how my brain works. And it's like, yeah, well, if you just got organized, you could just get things done a lot easier. I need hard deadlines, and I leave everything to the last
Oh
minute.
my
So I'm
God, me
still.
too. So
So
bad.
when someone comes along and says, "Oh no, just organize your time better." So yeah,
It's so easier said than done for people like us. It really is.
definitely.
Do you have a favorite quote or affirmation? Because I love them.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what I love? I love that all the solutions to our problems are within.
Oh, I love that because it's
Mm.
so bloody true.
Yeah, all the solutions are there, but you mentioned it earlier. We have blind spots. So sometimes we just need someone to switch on a light somewhere else, but all of our solutions are within us. But it's just, we might need to ask for some guidance to help us find those solutions,
Yeah.
but they're all there. Yeah.
And it's an endless journey. Like I've done a lot of healing in the last couple of years and a lot of like work on myself. And then last week I got hit with something huge that was so obvious to like the rest of the people in my life that I needed to like sort out. And I just was kind of like, I suppose I've had a little bit more pressing, urgent shit to deal with. So I dealt with that. And then eventually I was like, oh, there's this whole other layer of crap that I need to sort out too. Like, it doesn't really stop, lads. Like, I don't have it sussed. None of my guests on here have it sussed. The work is endless. So just to let
Yeah,
people know.
we're all a work in progress, Aoife.
Absolutely.
We think we have one layer done and it's another one. Oh yeah.
Yeah, layers and layers. I'm the layers. I'm like an onion, like seriously. What are you looking forward to most this Christmas?
Oh, just switching off and just spending time with family and friends that I haven't seen for in forever because we've just all been too busy. But yeah, just enjoying it and just being in the moment as much as I can.
Yeah. I'm going to have to work on it. I feel like this year I'm a little bit apprehensive for the first time in my life. I don't know why. I think the glue of our family is my baby sister, and she's over in Sydney. And she's like the glue even of the extended family. So I'm like, oh God, what do we do without her? Like, oh, it's just going to be weird. And I don't have the same, like, I don't know, excitement for it, which is awful. It's so not like me. I need to probably do a few breathwork sessions myself. But it's also making me reflect, like Christmas is not easy for everyone, and every year it can be a bit different for people too. So like, don't be hard on yourself, guys, if you don't love this time of year. I totally am
Yeah,
starting to understand that.
yeah. I know a lot of people find this time so hard for so many different reasons, whether it's someone that they've lost or,
Yeah.
so it's just, yeah, be kind to yourself and just do whatever works for you. Do what works for you.
Absolutely, like it can be totally, it doesn't have to be the same as everybody else. You just have to do what's right for yourself. And that goes for like everything in life. It doesn't have to be identical to the people around you. Just once you're doing what's right for yourself, that's definitely something I've learned through all the amazing guests I've had. And I can't believe you're my last guest for the first season. Thanks so much, Suzanne. It's been great to have you.
Thanks a million. And we're right in the middle of the 16 days of action against gender-based violence. So it was a
Amazing
great time.
timing and brilliant. I'll get this out as soon as possible. Such an amazing, important piece, and I hope people took a lot from it. I know I did today. So yeah, huge thank you again. Go have a look at Suzanne's Instagram and her website. She shares really, really great content that we all need to be discussing and keeping an eye out for other people this Christmas, because that's what it's all about at Christmas time. But thanks a million, Suzanne, and I hope everyone has a great Christmas.
Thank you, and happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
I hope you found this week's episode as awe-inspiring as I did. As I always say, knowledge is power, and I know you've gained an abundance of both from this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can watch these episodes over on my YouTube channel, Breathe with Aoife. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to We Share, We Grow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoyed this episode, please donate over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Breathe with Aoife, to help me gain the means to share and grow even more with you all. Thanks for listening.